Welcome to Telesur. This is From the South, from our studios in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Let's begin. We begin in Brazil, which will go to a runoff to choose its new president following today's election. No candidate has obtained a sufficient number of votes to win the presidency in the first round. With 99% of the votes counted, far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro received 46%. His opponent on the second round will be Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad, who received 29% of the votes. And left-wing candidate Ciro Gomes reached the third place with 12.4% of the votes. Ecologist Marina Silva received just 1%. Right-wing candidates Geraldo Alckmin had a 4.7% and Enrique Meireles a 1.20%, while left-wing activist and candidate Guillaume Boulos received 0.58%. Now let's look at a map of the vote distribution. We're going to show you a map that shows how the different regions of the country voted. In red, we find the areas which voted heavily for Haddad, and in blue are the areas which went to Bolsonaro. Others, much smaller areas of the country were won by candidate Ciro Gomes. And the two leading candidates spoke following the official results.
For the votes that I received today, that guarantee the Workers' Party to the second round. I would like to tell you that that the results are very expressive in the sense that we have to face the risks that democracy in Brazil is only one people. We have only one flag and only one heart, our union. Our union will make it that we have a decent government, a government that works for the people, and from our liberty, we have the way to put people serious and coherent to lead ministries that will give a response for what the people need.
Early on Sunday, Haddad cast his ballot in Sao Paulo. The left-wing candidate replaced former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who was barred from running and who has been in jail since April. Supporters of Lula da Silva spent the day outside of the prison in Curitiba, where he's been held, in a show of solidarity. A day before the election, Lula had sent a message to the Brazilian people urging them to vote to defend the legacy of the Workers' Party. And support for the former president has continued into the night for a vigil in Curitiba. Crowds cheered Lula on and said that they are optimistic about the runoff. Now to some other results. Bolsonaro's son, Eduardo, became the lawmaker with the highest number of votes in the history of Brazil. He was re-elected with 1,075,000 votes. He beats the previous record of Enéas Carneiro, who won 1,057,000 votes in 2002. Eduardo was a police officer and is known for supporting the freedom to carry weapons. And in another case, in Bahia, Rui Costa of the Workers' Party was re-elected as governor, with just under 77% of the vote, representing more than 4 million votes. This is the second election in which Costa has been elected in the first round. The state has a PT tradition, electing from the third term a governor of the Workers' Party. Costa was responsible for the construction of 240,000 homes as part of the Minha Casa, Minha Vida program. He also completed the third largest metro service in Salvador, the capital of Bahia State. And the difference between the polls and the actual results came as a surprise in Brazil, especially for lawmakers. One example in Minas Gerais, the second most populous state, former President Dilma Rousseff was the favorite in the polls, but according to the votes already counted, the PT leader will remain in fourth position and will not be elected. Bolsonaro's lead has issued a red alert for Brazilian progressive people and also across the region, especially when it comes to women and minorities, since he has made sexist and homophobic comments in the past. This lead, which would make it difficult for the left to push for social policies, still has Haddad supporters hopeful that he will beat the far right.
I already knew the results. I knew it would be Haddad and Bolsonaro in the runoff, and I'm confident, even though I think we already lost because of the conservative Congress we've elected. So it'll be hard to govern, but I think we'll resist and Haddad will win the runoff.
Today's elections were vital for Brazil's indigenous people. Members of an indigenous community in Cuiabá, in Mato Grosso state, threw arrows at the military which carried ballots to their village. This indigenous community had wanted to vote in the city instead. The indigenous people make up 0.4% of the Brazilian population.
Here, people are, so to speak, isolated. We are forgotten. But in the election period, yes, we have to vote. Vote, vote. But, well, we need help elsewhere.
All, or the majority of people in the community are here to vote. Yes, the majority is voting today, and that's good.
And also among those who voted were Brazilians living abroad. In Uruguay and Argentina, people waiting in line outside of their embassies to take part in these important elections. International observers were present and had positive things to say about Brazil's voting technology. They say the system is among the most reliable in the world. However, some say the spread of fake news during the campaign played a key role in the final results. Some voices have suggested that the outcome should be annulled if proven that fake news had any impact.
I have to say I have been extremely impressed by the mechanisms of voting and the biometrics and the other manners of trying to assure that the vote is secure, which is far better than what we have in the United States, because we know it is possible for our machines to be hacked.
I will keep my opinion about fake news impact until something actually happens, something that makes this court think about such a serious subject. We are in the middle of elections. We want to keep them calm, and we want voters to know their wills is going to be respected.
Coming up, more stories. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account at Carla G. Telesur. We'll be back. Welcome back. Now moving on to elections in Peru. According to exit polls, the candidates for governors in 16 out of the 25 regions did not achieve enough votes to win in a first round. They needed to reach no less than 30% of the vote. This vote included governors and over 1,000 mayors for the term of 2019 till 2022. Thousands of security officials were deployed to ensure that the election ran smoothly, as it did. The next elections will be held on December 9. Now to Honduras, where heavy rains and flooding have led to the deaths of at least 4 people and affected more than 6,500 people. The river Choluteca has been overflowing due to continuous rain for 4 days. Floods and mudslides have destroyed bridges, buildings, and roads. Villages have also been cut off. The heavy rains continue through Sunday. And now to Guatemala, people are remembering the attack on the Mayan community of Shaman more than 2 decades ago, when army troops killed 11 of them.
23 years ago, this place was full of tears, pain, and bloodshed. A Guatemalan army patrol trained their guns on resettled Mayans. The victims belonged to the Aurora community in the Chisec municipality, known as Alta Verapaz in the north. Some lived to tell the true life horror story.
First, they threw a bomb. That is when my ear got hurt, and now it's left me deaf. Then I saw people dead and bullets passing through. Fortunately, the bullets didn't touch me.
Survivors remember that 2 children, 2 teachers, and a teenager were among those killed.
They are not to blame, but the army, who took their lives away, they also killed a teacher, friends, and family.
The massacre took place on October 5th, 1995, when the villagers were preparing for an event, the commemoration of the first anniversary of their return to Mexico. Ironically, they had sought refuge there to protect themselves from military repression back in the 80s.
Soldiers were not allowed to enter this community of the returned. That is why people started to complain, because the army entered saying they were invited to anniversary celebrations, but they were lying.
Because of this massacre, 14 military men were condemned. However, 11 are still fugitives. The survivors say they don't believe the state is actively pursuing justice on behalf of the victims and survivors.
Many people have come like you. They only interview, talk, and then that's it. And there's almost no pressure on the army.
On September 28th, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights held the state of Guatemala accountable for the massacre and ordered that investigations continue.
Moving along, Mexico's indigenous communities are defending their homes and land from construction projects that threaten the environment and the quality of life. They have protested against work started by Enrique Peña Nieto and his government.
San Lorenzo Acopilco is a community located in the highlands of Ciudad de Mexico, and their land belongs to more than 2,000 co-owners.
They didn't take us into consideration. They passed through a hill, tore it down, damaging our water resources. We don't have water now. There are 7 damaged spots. This is really regrettable.
Those who are speaking out prefer to remain anonymous. They have been victims of intimidation and physical assault from groups claiming to be authorities. They then hand over land to the government on behalf of the community.
We were going to have a meeting regarding the work, but Mr. Gabino Sandoval and his people arrived to the main plaza to beat us. I was hurt that day.
The interurban train will cover 58 kilometers from Toluca to the capital city. This is a public and private funded project that didn't consult the locals.
In Mexico, we know of at least 500 social and environmental conflicts. Most of them arose from mega projects, and many times people living in affected areas don't know that a mine is going to be dug until the day the work starts. Then there are clashes, and it turns out that those projects have already been authorized years ago.
Villagers in the Texcoco Lake area are in a similar situation as the New Mexico International Airport is being built, and is estimated to cost $13 billion, 50% more than initially expected.
I dare to say that in Texcoco all the environmental considerations are fake. They have faulty data, and we have to sanction those technicians and government workers.
People from Defense of Earth Front and other social groups have fought against the new airport that has taken a large part of their land. Construction has destroyed farming groups and crops used for production and self-consumption.
Now we go to Haiti, where an earthquake hit the north of the country late on Saturday, killing at least 12 people, according to the Interior Ministry. Rescue agency helped residents of the worst-hit towns in the Caribbean country. The tremor was one of the strongest to batter Haiti since the 7.0 magnitude earthquake that struck near the capital in 2010. That one killed tens of thousands of people. President Jovenel Moïse said he would send additional police and military to the region, promising to assist the families of the victims. The United States Senate has confirmed Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. This despite facing accusations of sexual assault and a week-long FBI investigation that sharply divided the country. In a narrow vote of 50 to 48, President Donald Trump's nominee was confirmed late on Saturday. Protesters inside the Senate building interrupted the voting at least 4 times. Kavanaugh was sworn in shortly after the decision for this lifetime appointment. And as Kavanaugh was being confirmed, thousands took to the streets across the country to oppose his appointment. Protesters marching in New York City chanted slogans like "The system is sexist" and "Impeach," while in Austin, Texas, demonstrators blocked a heavily transited bridge.
Well, I think it's incredibly important to have someone on the council.
People are still shocked after a limousine crashed in New York City and all 18 passengers died. The accident left 2 standbyers dead as well. On Saturday, a limo speeding downhill in Escobar County in New York City crashed. It is considered the deadliest car accident in the last 9 years in the country. The car crashed into bystanders and lost control and also hit an empty car. Officials await for the autopsies to determine if the driver was drinking. Thousands of anti-racism demonstrators have took to the streets of Montreal to denounce the newly elected coalition d'Avenir Québec. They are particularly opposed to certain immigration and religious expression in Canada. The party's leader, François Legault, confirmed the plan to reduce immigration numbers and to ban religious symbols from some public servants, including judges, prosecutors, police officers, and teachers. We'll take one last short break, but stay with us. Thank you for joining us again. Former Nigerian Vice President Atiku Abubakar will challenge incumbent Muhammadu Buhari for the Nigerian presidency early next year. This after winning with the opposition Democratic People's Party in the primary elections. 71-year-old Abubakar had 1,532 votes, and his main rival of the northern Sokoto state, who reached 693 votes at the party's convention in the city of Port Harcourt. Nigerians will elect governors and lawmakers as well as the president in the elections set for February and March 2019.
I felt there was need, for somebody like me to step out, experience in politics, experience in governance, experience in business, to try and restore and bring back the country on track as far as economic development is concerned and other aspects of our national life.
The president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, has met with a delegation from the United Nations Security Council. The team is in the country to assess the readiness for the December presidential elections, which were long postponed. The team will also hold talks with civil society leaders, representatives of women's organizations, and religious groups. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo praised the progress on agreements made at the Singapore summit. This after a meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang on Sunday. Pompeo met with Kim for around 2 hours and talked about denuclearization and a second U.S.-North Korean summit. However, North Korea's foreign minister made it clear at the United Nations last month that there's no way his country would disarm as long as U.S. sanctions remain.
So we had a great visit this morning. Thank you for hosting. President Trump sends his regards, and we had a very successful morning. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to our time together here at lunch as well.
China confirmed that it has detained Interpol President Meng Hongwei on suspicion of violating the law. According to a report by the South China Morning Post, Meng was taken in for questioning by Chinese authorities. The paper based its reporting on an unnamed source and said the reason for Meng's questioning was unknown. Meng disappeared during a trip to China last month. His wife spoke about his case.
Although I can't see my husband, we are always connected by heart. He will support me doing this. The matter belongs to the fairness and justice. The matter belongs to the international community. The matter belongs to the people of my motherland.
The wife of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has appeared in court to face fraud charges. Sarah Netanyahu is accused of misusing public funds and concealing the fact that she used a private chef but declared it as a state expense for meals in official functions. She denies the charges against her. If she's convicted, she could serve up to 5 years in prison. Supporters of WikiLeaks gather outside the Ecuadorian embassy in London to mark its 12th birthday. They also demanded the freedom of founder Julian Assange, who's been living in the embassy since 2012 after being granted asylum. A birthday cake was shared and supporters sang outside the embassy. The LGBTI community in Romania is celebrating the low turnout in a referendum aimed to prevent the legalization of same-sex marriage. Just 20% of the registered voters participated in this consultation, which has voided it. Now the LGBTI community is calling for the end of discrimination and the legalization of equal marriage.
What's next, and the state has an obligation to do it, is to urgently legalize the civil partnership. The Romanian state has to give us civil partnership.
There's no such thing as a traditional family, only family. Maybe food and clothing can be traditional. A family is a family.
And you can read more about the elections in Brazil on our website. You can go to our section of In-Depth, and then in Brazil elections, everything you need to know. Remember, our site is telesurtv.net/English, where you can find the updated information and analysis on these elections. So go check it out. And you can also follow us on social media. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and until the next time, thank you for watching Telesur, connecting the Global South.